Then welcome everybody to this 9x live workshop on Claude Code for beginners. I'm really excited about this one. It's the tool that especially Alex and myself from 9x, this was our Christmas and New Year's present. We've been diving deep on Claude Code and already having a lot of fun with it. In terms of the agenda today, so we're going to get started with a quick introduction, cover the basics of Claude Code, help you obviously set up Claude Code as well. Then I'm going to walk through a beginner workflow that I think anyone can follow, especially good if you're just getting started. And then we'll finish off with a live build all together. Perfect. Throughout the session, please feel free to drop questions in the chat. Obviously, whenever there's sessions with this many people, the chat can get a little bit crazy and hard to follow. But the 9x team are here as well, and they'll be like noting down some let's say themes in the questions, and then they'll also interrupt me if there's anything that I should go over during the session. And otherwise, we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. But we want to make this as interactive as possible. So feel free to drop in your questions as well.
Can we see the QR code again for a second?
Yes, there we go. And you also have the link there, the short link, go9x.me/cc prep.
go9x.me.
And everyone should also have received this link via email. You can just take a look for Luma in your email, and you should have this one.
Okay, share it again in the chat.
Perfect. All right. So for anyone who doesn't know us yet, we are 9x. You can find us at go9x.com. We are building your one-stop shop to learn AI and automation, because we believe that both AI and automation are the most important skills that you can learn as a business professional. So we're focused on teaching business professionals how they can leverage this technology. Myself and my co-founders, Alex and Piv, none of us are devs or engineers, and we're proud to be business people first and foremost. But we think it's definitely time that business people are also leveraging these technologies. And as I said, it's our mission to bring you these skills on a silver platter. And we do this in a few different ways, starting with our YouTube channel. So I will drop a link, or if someone from the 9x team has the links there, I should have them just here. Perfect. Every week we are publishing new AI and automation tutorials, demos, also the latest news. So if you haven't yet, on New Year's Eve, we just cracked 50,000 subscribers, which sort of made our year a little bit. So feel free to drop us a subscribe if you haven't already. On top of our YouTube channel, we also run these 9x live workshops every single week, like the one that you are in today. Today's is actually our first of 2026. Some people can't hear me. Is that just Troy, or is that everyone?
I think we can hear you very well.
Okay. I think Troy, maybe check your Zoom. Zoom can be a bit funky sometimes. So we run these live sessions each and every week. We've had a little bit of a Christmas and New Year's break, and this is our first session back. But next week we'll be back for a more, like, let's say, strategical high level session that I'm really excited about. We're going to have Phil Lacken, who, especially maybe those of you in the no-code space, will probably know very well. Phil is the head of enterprise innovation at Zapier, and we're going to be diving deep all into the transformation playbook specifically for the enterprise. So if you are interested in joining next week's session, I've also dropped the link in the chat. I think we have already 600-700 people signed up to that one, so that should be a good one. And finally, the third way that we're bringing these skills on a silver platter is through our AI and automation courses. So we've structured these to really take you from beginner all the way to advanced, starting with our free AI starter course to just discover what's possible with AI as a business professional. Next up, the AI operator, where you will learn how to become productive with AI at work, using AI as a co-pilot, so going deep into prompting techniques and a bit of context engineering. And then finally, our most advanced program, the AI Builder, we actually learn to automate with AI, building AI-powered automations and AI agents. So with those shameless plugs out the way, but actually before I do that, I need to drop the links to our courses also in the chat. Here we go. Feel free to check those out. But yeah, with the shameless plugs out the way, let's get into the workshop, and specifically what are the goals of what we're trying to achieve today. And what I hope that everyone leaves with, at least as a base understanding of what Claude Code is and when they should use it. Also show you how to get Claude Code up and running on your computer, and then live together we'll build a first automation using Claude Code. But first of all, a quick public service announcement, because this is something that always comes up when we do these live demos. It would be amazing if everything, all the tools that we use are free, but that is not the case with Claude Code. That is a paid feature. Specifically, if you do have a monthly plan, you will need to have at least the pro plan. If you're an individual or on the team, you actually need like a premium team plan. There are two actual ways of getting access to Claude Code though, two different payment options. The fixed monthly plans that I just showed you. So this would be starting at $20 a month when you just have a regular Claude plan, but then you could also pay as you go. So there's also a way that you could start with your Anthropic API key. If you just want to test it out, you could load it up with $5 worth of credit, and then it's basically usage-based pricing. Having said that though, I would say this could tend to get eaten up quite quickly if you are doing some bigger coding sessions. So definitely in the long run, I would recommend a fixed monthly plan for sure. All right, so let's get into Claude Code 101 before we get into the setup. And I just see another question in the chat. Just to repeat, this workshop is being recorded, and also it will be basically shared with everyone via email tomorrow. So starting with the big question, what is Claude Code? And this is the description that I actually found from Anthropic itself. So an agentic coding tool that lives in your terminal and helps you turn ideas into code faster than ever before. So even this definition, I would say, is quite developer focused. When we talk about agentic, that's basically a coding tool that has the ability to make its own decisions, and you're giving it a task, and the agentic coding tool is figuring out the best way to complete that task. And it's really, I guess, its prime focus for Anthropic in developing this was as a developer tool. But interestingly enough, again, this is coming from the Anthropic themselves. They basically specified in their documentation that Claude Code excels at 4 main activities. First of all, building features from description. So you can just tell Claude what you want in plain English. It'll make a plan, write the code, and ensure that it works. Yeah, also debug and fixing issues. So describe a bug, or you can just paste an error message and Claude will analyze your code base and implement a fix. Navigating any code base. So theoretically, you can ask anything about your team's code and get thoughtful answers with full project awareness. And then finally, automate tedious tasks. So use it for any repetitive business workflow, whether that's organizing files, processing spreadsheets, generating documents, moving data between tools, updating systems of record, you name it. Now, if we look at these 4 use cases, it's quite clear that the first 3 are very much focused on proper software development, which is not so, like, let's say, exciting initially for us mere business professionals. But of course, the last one, automating tedious tasks, definitely applies to every single business professional. And this is what we'll be focusing on in this session today. So we won't be spinning up a live website or a live app. We're really going to be focused on, okay, how can we use this new technology to automate tedious tasks? Now, let me just double quickly check. I'm going to add a few more people in from the wait room. There we go. And I want to start on this point of automating tedious tasks. I want to start with a quick example of how I've been using Claude Code to do precisely this. And one of the first things I basically set up was a newsletter agent in Claude Code. So I'll give you a quick demo of how this works to give you an idea. For those of you who maybe have just joined this session for the first time and have never received any emails from 9X, basically every week I'm preparing these emails, which typically include one of 2 things. First of all, what's our next 9X Live workshop that we're doing, so that basically anyone who subscribed to our 9X newsletter is aware of our upcoming free live sessions, and also what are the latest videos on our YouTube channel. My process previously was I was still using AI to help me come up with these emails. But let's say, for instance, for the live sessions, I would go and grab the event description from Luma, put it into a Claude project that's already trained up on writing newsletters, and then it would basically take this longer description and optimize it in a newsletter format. I do the same with the YouTube videos, give it the transcript, but there's still a little bit of manual work. So let's see how we can basically solve this in Claude Code. So I'm just going to open up here in Visual Studio. I've got this one folder. So this is a folder that lives on my computer called Work Automation. I can just open this one up. And now in the top right hand side, I'm going to open up this little Claude Code extension that everyone should have installed. And now what I can simply do here is write /newsletter. So you can see here, I've got the newsletter / command, and Claude Code is getting to work. So let's have a look at what's going on. And it says, I'll start generating the newsletter by fetching the event and video data. So first of all, it's using some Python script. And here we can already see it immediately just went and fetched from the Luma API the event description of next week's 9X Live. And let's see, it's also then gone and found some videos that we haven't promoted yet. And you can see it's got the full transcript from the latest videos, the latest video that we uploaded on the 9X Live, on the 9X YouTube channel. So it went just like that, got the event description, got the YouTube transcript, and now it's working on its task. And this takes a little bit of time because it's processing quite a lot under the hood. Now it's writing the event pitch. All right, I'll add some more people in. And just while that one's going, what I can just point out here, so on the left-hand side is that work automation folder, and all of these are files that live on my computer, and I didn't generate a single one of these files. Everything was created with Claude Code when I set up this project and had it help me automate some of these tasks. Now, what always happens whenever you do this live, it seems to take a lot longer than it normally would, but it should get there pretty quickly.
There are many questions in the chat
Yeah.
around. So for those, I see a lot of questions around difference between Claude Code and Sonnet, why using in the terminal or using in VS Code. So for there's a presentation. There's a few of these questions are going to be covered before we get more practical. So let's wait a little bit.
Exactly.
And then if there are more questions that were not covered in what Jan prepared, you can ask. But like a lot of the questions I see in the chat right now will be covered in the next slides.
Absolutely. All right, so now we've had a couple of agents spin up, and it says I have the copy from both agents. Let me now generate the HTML preview and show you the draft. This should like speed up a little bit quicker now. And I might actually minimize this so we can see that new window pop up when it happens. And this is, of course, something like I could just hit that /newsletter command, go and grab a cup of coffee, and then come back when it's done. Now it's asking me permission to actually generate the newsletter HTML and save the preview. I'm going to say yes. And there we go. So here it's giving me now a preview of that email in HTML. This week, we've got the Enterprise AI Playbook straight from Zappia's Head of Enterprise Innovation, plus our complete blueprint for implementing AI across your business. We have the latest YouTube video on our channel. Some of you in the newsletter may recognize this one from last week. A little bit behind at the moment with the YouTube videos, but we will have new ones being published soon. Of course, this links directly to the correct video. Anyone who's done email newsletters in the past would definitely know that it's very easy to mess up and send the wrong link to different assets. And here we have our next week's 9X Live with a quick description about what's involved, and it follows the exact format you want. We can test that out, and that's linking exactly to the session. So we can just see that going from me doing this manually, building this email directly, we can use this to really save us a bunch of time. and we'll be able to we'll show you in this session how we can build some of those workflows. But as Alex said, let's continue with the presentation. Unless Alex, were there any questions on this workflow specifically?
Tommy's jaw just dropped.
Very cool. My jaw also dropped the first time it actually worked.
And just again to wrap up what just happened, this is something that once configured, you can just
Exactly. So I have
/newsletter.
Exactly. You have different
the next time you look at it, this is what you see.
Exactly. You have different commands, and it's basically, you can think of it like a predefined automation or predefined workflow that Claude knows exactly what to do. Perfect.
Let's start.
And we'll see this in a bit more detail, but I just wanted to start with a demo first. All right, so that's our newsletter agent demo. So now when it comes to setting up Claude Code, as I said, I'll leave this on screen for 30 seconds. Please follow the workshop preparation page. The instructions that I've given, I've already seen a few different questions around, like, why did you choose this tool over this tool? There's many different ways, which we'll see in a second. And what I've tried to do was, let's say, pick the version that is the easiest for everyone to use. So when it comes to Claude Code, and this is particularly a reason why I guess there's so many people interested in a session like this, it is a little bit complex. There are actually multiple ways that you can access this technology, Claude Code. You can access it in the terminal. You can access it in a code editor, which is what I was just showing. And also there's the Claude desktop app. So if we have a look here, this is a code editor called Visual Studio Code. And here in the extensions, there's actually an extension called Claude Code for VS Code, which was released relatively recently, but has already had 3 million downloads. So this is the one that we'll be using today. But as a few people pointed out, you can also use Claude Code in your terminal. This is by far the, let's say, fullest feature set, by far the most powerful. However, when it comes to a workflow as a beginner, what's a little bit intimidating here is you don't actually see what files you're working on. Whereas when you're in a code editor like Visual Studio Code, I'm just going to minimize this extension and go back to here. What's really nice is I can chat with Claude here, and then I can also see any of the files that Claude creates. So for instance, if I look here in the output and I can see newsletters, and we have drafts. Here we can see the different HTML newsletter drafts that it generates. So we can see there's a bunch there from testing, and you can actually go up and open any of these files and then review them. And so that's why the code editor is a little bit more beginner friendly, especially with the using the extension. And you also, of course, I just need to move these zoom controls. You also have the Claude desktop app, where you can also access this Claude Code feature, select what folder you want to work on, and away you go. So a quick, maybe like few cents on all of them. The terminal, as I said, has all of the features, but it's probably the most technical, so maybe not so beginner friendly. Then the code editor has most of the features, is a lot more beginner friendly than the terminal. And then the Claude app, which is in beta, probably has the most limitations when it comes to features, but is definitely the easiest to start with. Perfect. Then on top of that, so as I said, we're going to be using Visual Studio Code with the Claude Code extension. On top of that, to add even more complexity, there's two different modes of using it, let's say. You can use it locally on your machine, and that's what I just showed you before, where Claude Code is actually interacting with files on your computer. You can also interact with GitHub repositories by obviously cloning them onto your machine, but everything runs locally. This way you can also run API calls, like I just showed with making the API call to Luma to get the event description, making the API call to YouTube to get the transcript. However, there's obviously some security risks when you're running something so powerful on your machine locally. Maybe it accesses some files that it shouldn't. Maybe if you prompt it the wrong way or you're not so careful, it deletes some files. So there are those risks. Then there's also the cloud mode, what Claude is saying, using Claude Code in the web. This does not run locally on your machine, so therefore it doesn't have any access to local files. It is purely for working with GitHub repositories, so it's something much more for developers working on code bases. Also from testing, I wasn't able to get any of those API calls to run when using cloud mode. Like for instance, the YouTube API was blocked, the Luma API was blocked because it's much more like let's say its focus is for running tasks in the background on your existing code base. Having said that, it's much more secure because it obviously can't do, the only damage it can do is making some changes to a GitHub repository that could be getting rolled back. So for today's session, obviously we want to do some meaningful work. So we're going to be using the local mode. Any questions on those different ways to access, Alex, or should we keep going?
Maybe you can add just one comment as to why you are using VS Code.
Yeah,
But
so
maybe more personal preference at this point, but
yeah, so not even personal preference. So I've also got, for instance, Cursor installed on my computer, which is another code editor, quite popular now. It's an AI first code editor. Actually, Cursor is a what's known as a Visual Studio Code fork. So similar to how different browsers are built on top of Chrome, there's new code editors that are built on top of Visual Studio Code. I typically just picked Visual Studio Code because it's the easiest to get started with. So personally, I'm using Claude sometimes in the terminal, sometimes in Cursor. But I think for beginners getting started, a few of us went through the process again yesterday, and I just picked it because it's the most beginner friendly.
okay. And maybe another question people may have so you install Claude Code on your laptop once, and then you can call it from different places, right? So if I have a
Except when you're using the Visual Studio Code extension. So when you use the extension, it's not actually installed on your laptop yet. You're just using the extension here, which also makes the setup a little bit easier.
okay.
Yeah, let me just close this file so that looks a little bit better. I'll move my screens around here. All right. So what I want to do now is walk you through a beginner workflow where I'll be doing this step by step, and then there'll be some time for questions while we go, because as we can see, Claude's going to run a little bit. I want you to walk, like let's say, watch me through the process, and then we'll do a live build all together. And this will also give you plenty of time to actually go and set up Visual Studio Code. So I'll just show you that here. You should have the links in the preparation guide. So you just need to download Visual Studio Code from whatever machine you're on, then open it up. Once you've opened it up, look here in the extensions marketplace, and then just search for Claude Code. And there are a bunch of extensions with that name. Make sure you grab the Claude Code for VS Code. It's the official one from Anthropic. And when you open this up, let me make this full screen, and I'm just going to close this newsletter tab. We can see here the almost 3 million downloads. That's the one that we want to look for. Perfect. All right, so let me walk you through a beginner workflow. And before I do, I really want to highlight this. This was a tweet from Boris, who's actually the creator of Claude Code, and he made a very, very important point. Similar to, I guess, a lot of questions people are asking. There is no one correct way to use Claude Code. Each person even on the Claude Code team uses it very differently. So what you're seeing in this workshop is not the ultimate Claude Code, let's say, process, or the best Claude Code process for business automation. It's the one I think is probably the easiest for most people to get started with, since this is a beginner's workshop. Maybe let's see on the 9x YouTube channel, we do the ultimate Claude Code process in a few weeks, but this is really for beginners to get you started. All right, so what I'll be doing now live, and then you guys can watch along, is an invoice generator agent. So what I have prepared, I've tried to think of another manual process, this one from the finance team. So imagine there is a finance manager who's in charge of creating invoices. They might be working in a tool like Airtable or in a tool like Google Sheets, where they have the different data for the invoices. And of course, if they have an financial software, probably the invoice creation is taken care of automatically, but maybe you're a freelancer and you need to do this manually. You still have a bunch of people creating invoices in Google Docs or manually adding the line items in invoices. So what we want to see is, if can Claude Code access my Airtable, pull in any of the data from the invoices that are ready to create, and then go and create the PDF here for me. The way this table is structured is we have invoices and we have their matching line items when this one loads. There we go. So the way I will basically go about this is I'm going to go into Visual Studio Code and open up a new window, and I'm going to open a file. So I'm going to open a folder, and I'm going to create a new folder. Let me actually go into my projects where I've got a few different Claude Code projects already. I'm going to create a new folder. So that's what I'd start with, is just a blank folder. And I'm going to call this one Invoice Generator CC Demo, and create, and then open this one up. So now we have, yes, I trust the author of this since I only just created it. So now we have a blank folder here in Visual Studio Code, and this is actually a folder on my machine. Let me close the chat here. And now let me walk you through quickly the workflow. I'm just going to, again, move my screens around. So the way I recommend it is, first, we're going to start Claude Code in plan mode, which you'll see in a second. Next up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Claude the task it should do and not the automation. And what I mean by this, again, this is something that I just think is a best way for beginners, is ask Claude to do the process that you want it to do once first before thinking about building this slash command. So instead of saying straight away, hey, I want you to create an automation that does this, I'm going to say, hey, here's a bunch of invoices. For each invoice, I want you to create a PDF. That's the initial prompt that I'm going to give it. After we've told Claude the task, it's going to create a plan, and we need to review this carefully. Claude will then execute the plan. We test and iterate. For instance, if it messes up something in the invoice generation, I'll tell it that feedback until we've got it right. And then at the end, once Claude has done the work once successfully, we're going to turn this into a reusable command. So let's go to that Claude Code project that we have. I'm going to open up Claude Code. Sometimes here in Visual Studio Code, you won't be able to find it back. If this is the case, just go back to the marketplace, look for Claude Code, and then it should open up here with this little pop-up. All right, so I've got that here. First thing, remember, first step, start Claude Code in plan mode. At the bottom here, you have, right now it says edit automatically. And if I give a prompt here, what Claude wants to do, it actually wants to edit things. It wants to create files. It wants to write code. That's what it's very good at. But what we can do is say, hang on a minute, let's plan what we're going to do first. And then I'm just going to enter a very simple prompt. Let me grab that one here, describing the task that I want Claude to do. So I'll paste this one in, and it says, I have an Airtable base with invoice data, an invoice table, and linked line items table. For each invoice, when the status is created, could you please generate an HTML invoice, export it as PDF, and then upload it back to Airtable? When that's done, update the status to ready to send. Okay, so that's good. I'm just going to fire this one off. And also, a word of warning, there's probably going to be a lot of awkward silences during this session while Claude does some thinking. Now, this is something that comes up quite a lot, is Claude is going to ask for permissions to do something. It says, allow this bash command. I'll explain what they are in a second. What I'm going to say is I'm going to allow all for this session. Means if it needs to do the same thing again, it's not going to ask me to do that same thing. So you see there's a lot here, bash, bash, bash. Let me just explain what they are quickly. So bash commands are basically ways that a computer can execute some commands. So it's like a text version of doing some action. You can see create, moving, renaming, and deleting files, comparing and merging files, editing and manipulating text files. So it's a certain type of command that the computer understands to do some certain things. So for instance, the ls command lists contents in a folder. The echo command will print something. The touch command will create a file. So that's what you'll see here a lot when we have these different bash commands. Now Claude is asking me, what tech stack would you prefer for this project? I'm actually going to select Python for this use case. I think it might be a little bit quicker to get started. In general, when you're just playing around with this, you can definitely go with the recommendations, but this is really the time where then you can do some learning as you go as well. So I'm going to select Python. Then it's asking me, do you have your Airtable API credentials ready? In my case, I'm going to say, yes, I have them. If I didn't, all I can say is I need help finding them. And then what Claude's going to do is it's going to explain exactly how to go and create your API keys. I'm going to say, yes, I have them. And then for the invoice fields, what fields does your invoice table have? Now here I could just go and specify the fields. Something I like doing, especially when we're interacting with third-party tools. I'm just going to say connect to the API first and inspect the fields yourself. So what I've told Claude to do there is like, I'm getting super lazy here. Rather than me telling you exactly what fields are in my invoice table, I'm going to give you the API key to Airtable, and then you can just go and figure it out yourself. While Claude is doing its next thing, what is your Airtable personal access token? So I'll say I'll paste it now. And what's your base ID? I'm also going to paste it now, and I'll show you how to get both of those for any Airtable users. So here I'm just going to, under Builder Hub. Now, also as a word of warning, I'm doing something here that no one should ever do. I'm creating a token on a live stream for everyone to see, but I'm going to make sure it only has access to that specific base. So I'm going to go CC demo invoicing, and I need to now in Airtable. So this is Airtable specific. It's not Claude Code specific. Give this API key certain actions that it's allowed to do. I'm going to say it's going to be able to create and read the different data in my Airtable base. And it's also going to be able to create and write the schema. Schema means the different fields in this base. And then I can add here my invoicing Claude Code demo base, create a token, and I'll quickly copy that one. And please provide your Airtable credentials by selecting other and pasting them. So that's going to be my personal access token. And then I'm going to grab the base URL. So for that, I can simply go back to my Airtable base. Oh, I have to click back here. Open up my invoicing, copy the URL, and it's asking for the base ID. I'm just going to give it the URL and let it figure it out and submit my answers.
So maybe, Jan, to
Yep,
summarize what we've done here, and like people are asking, so what you're doing right now is a demo, huh?
exactly. Yeah, people shouldn't follow along with this.
Yes. And maybe to wrap up what we've done so far, we started with plan mode
Yep,
because we don't want to jump right into the action. That would
yep,
be, we're not sure what we do. And it's very much about to give it access to, first you explain your use case, and
yep,
you let Claude figure out what would be the most likely steps. And then eventually there was question of accessing the data,
yep,
which is what you did just now. And to access the data, this happens via API. So in the case of Airtable, the way to access the data is with this access token and the base ID. It will depend on the service where your data is stored. So if it's Google Sheets, it's going to be different. Now the beauty is Claude Code is going to tell you what it needs, and all you need to do is describe your problem or your use case clearly enough. If it's in Google Sheets, don't say Excel.
yeah.
But the rest, you should be fairly guided. If you don't know where the API key is as well, you can also simply ask Claude Code, like, where is it? Or where do I find it for the service I'm trying to access?
Yeah, absolutely. And what like another really good thing of this using this plan mode, as some of you might have already noticed when you're using large language models a lot, they tend to just go ahead and try and give you an answer. Whereas even here with plan mode, I haven't given enough information in my initial prompt. And the first thing it did straight away is like, hey, I need to connect to Airtable. What's your API key? Now it's asking me, do you have company branding? It was smart enough to realize if I'm going to send invoices, I probably should provide some company details. What I'm going to do for this case, so here I'd just say like, yes, I'll provide the details. You can drop images into Claude Code. Just for the sake of this quick demo, I'm just going to say use a generic template to get started. And what it basically did, and this is still in plan mode, I gave it my Airtable API key, and you can see it actually went and read like what are all the tables and the data in my Airtable. And you can see here, I now have a complete, oops, now it's coming up. It's already given me its plan. Before I show you the plan, what I just wanted to show you here, or it's actually, yeah, it's a little bit grayed out now, but it just made an API call to Airtable, and it just pulled in every single data point from the invoice table and also the line items table. Now what it's done is it's created a plan, invoice generator plan, build a Python script that does the following. And now this is my recommendation, review this plan carefully and give feedback. This is the best way that you'll learn about these topics, especially if you're new in the world of development like I am. This is really great. It gives you such a detailed plan. It tells you the folder structure, the different libraries it's going to use, the step-by-step implementation. All of this for just a simple task. Now, obviously, for this demo, I'm just going to accept the plan blindly because I think it's pretty low risk. I'm going to say yes and auto accept. And now we're at this stage where Claude is executing the plan. We still need to be around. You can see it's got its full list of to-dos. It's like it's almost created a ticketing system for itself. This is everything I need to develop now, and it's going to tick these off one by one until we actually have our, like, let's say this first task completed. So now it's wrote a couple of files already. It's now started writing a Python script for itself. And what's really cool, all of this we can start seeing here on the left-hand side as it creates them.
And maybe one of the most important piece of advice here, that's not from us specifically, but really from everyone who's starting to really explore using Claude Code and working with Claude Code. The most important part of the work it comes at the very beginning. So
Absolutely.
the better. And so this applies to business use cases where we want to automate a workflow, like what Jan is doing now, as much as it applies to devs who want to use Cloud Code to generate applications or to build features. The developers report that the results are much better the more careful they are in their planning, and the more they make sure that the requirements are all there, and then Cloud Code executes in the right direction.
And it's working pretty fast. We can already see we've got 4 Python scripts and an invoice HTML template created. We've now got another one here, the requirements text. You can see sometimes it tries to run some things and runs into some trouble. So this one, it got received an error. And now it understands what the error is and says, okay, this one, we had an error with this Python library. Let me try and switch to a simpler approach. So it's also really smart that it's able to correct itself along the way. And I know some people would see this as like, oh, it's not getting it the first time. But like when I'm building workflows in Make or N8N or Zapier, most times I'm not getting it right the first time. I actually need to go and test things. Things will break. I iterate. I change my course of action. And it's doing the exact same here. So now it's realized it needs to update the HTML template to be compatible with this new library that it's using. Okay, now it's going to try and run the script again. Okay, so now there's some issues with the file upload. It's filing. Let me check what's happening and try again. Okay, it's realized it had to use a different solution here.
Was a question on how to switch in and out of plan mode.
Yeah, so whenever you have started up in plan mode, when you see that button at the end where it says accept plan, that automatically changes it here to edit automatically. I can click this now to go back into plan mode, but this is where you're changing it here at the bottom left. Okay, so it took a little bit, but now we've got the message, all 3 invoices has been processed successfully. Let me verify by checking the updated records in Airtable. Let's try to make another call to Airtable. The first one failed. Immediately it realized what it did and now it has it working.
There are also questions on your token consumption, Jan. So
yeah, we'll cover that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so now it says done. All 3 invoices with the status create have been processed. It lists them here. It says it has updated the status to ready to send. Let's go take a look in Airtable and hopefully Claude isn't lying to us. Okay, so all of these, you can see this is updated. Let me go and open up one of these invoices. And here we have the exact invoice PDF. That's super impressive. Obviously, I said like just use a base template, but here you could provide it with maybe like a PDF, a Google Doc as inspiration. And that has done it. In this case, we had like 4-line items, so like split pages. If we wanted to be really particular, I could go back to Claude Code and say, hey, look, where possible, try and make the invoice fit on one page. Let me check another one. Yeah, for instance, this one here only has 3-line items, so that fits on one page, but this is like pretty impressive how it just took care of everything. And now that we've verified, let's say we're verified that we're happy with it, we move on to the last part of the plan. As I said, if here I wasn't happy with anything, I would let Claude know this, test and iterate, and really make sure that what the invoice that Claude is spitting out is matching the data in Airtable, but I'm quite confident that it is. Now we can create a reusable command. And all I'm going to do here is say, that worked. Can you please create a / command, create invoices so that I can run the exact workflow again in the future. And now I could go back to plan mode if I wanted to first tell me the plan of how it's going to create this / command. But in my case, I'm just going to say, let's say here, edit automatically and do this. And now it's going to create a / command, which we'll explain in a second. I'm going to allow it always for this session. Perfect. And now it says that done, the / command is ready. If we have a look here in the files on the left, you get this .claude folder. And here there's a command, create invoices MD. MD stands for markdown. And I can actually open this one up. This is basically a saved prompt. So let me open this one up in Markdown. That tells Claude what it should do when this command is generated. In this case, it just tells it what script it should run. So Claude's done the work once, created the right scripts. Now we can create this reusable command. Very important when we want to actually use this now. If I type / and look for create, we don't actually see it here. The reason being is we actually need to load Claude again because anything in this .claude folder is like Claude's settings and it only sees them when it starts up. So what I can do here is just type here / new conversation and open this. And this is now Claude rebooting. Let me try and see now if and here, there was our create invoices / command. To test this, obviously one thing we need to do is go and change some more statuses here to create because it's very specific that it only grabs the ones that are set to create. Let me just do it for all of the rest of the invoices. So now imagine you're working in finance once a week. You just know that the data's ready. You just do your command. Claude's going to get to work. And let's see how quick we're actually going to watch in Airtable. And we can see Claude's already creating the first invoices just like that. It's pretty insane.
Many questions in the chat around using this over N8N, Zapier, Make. This is pretty wild, huh? Because so this custom workflow built just by describing it. And the second question, so comparison to those platforms that basically allow you to build and maintain those workflows. And the other question is this command that you just created.
Yeah.
Can it be used in Claude for desktop, or do we have to have Claude Code to run it?
Yeah, so this is a Claude Code command. Yeah, and particularly as well, because what this is doing is it's running a script that's interacting with an API. If you remember that slide that I showed earlier on the different ways, let me just go back here. Where are we? Here, running these API calls at the moment, when I've tried this on web, it's not able to because basically Claude spins up when you're doing it on web and like a virtual machine or a server. And basically these API calls are blocked for security reasons. So this is something that only runs locally. Yeah. Maybe one thing that I can just point out though, so even though this one doesn't work, like these commands that we've done, there's actually a few different ways of creating these reusable workflows in Claude Code that I want to touch on. So first of all, there's commands. That's what you just saw. This is a predefined workflow that you can manually trigger. So I've got the newsletter one. I just did /newsletter. That is a command. Then you also have skills. And skills is something that you can import into Claude on the web, use it on desktop. It doesn't involve let's say like needing to run something locally. And what skills are, instead of predefined workflows, this is knowledge that Claude can auto apply where relevant. And I'll give you some examples in a second. And then we also have sub agents. This is a little bit on the advanced side. So specialized workers that handle tasks in their own space. Let me go through this and we can then take a look at some real examples. So commands, definitely beginner friendly. You just saw how quickly it was to set this up. One example, so really think about this as a workflow and automation of business process, like creating invoices, writing the next newsletter. This is one workflow that follows a set amount of steps. So one example might be whenever we publish a YouTube video, I want you to process that YouTube video and then come up with different LinkedIn posts. This is a process. And then I want you to go and save those LinkedIn posts to our content management system. This is a command. Then you have a skill, and a skill Claude invokes automatically, which means it can be used in more than one place and you don't need to manually trigger it. So an example here is you could create a skill in Claude that teaches it what a good LinkedIn post looks like. This should actually be LinkedIn post writer, not linked post writer. But you could have a LinkedIn post writer where you give all of your best practices on how to write LinkedIn posts. Because the thing is, in this workflow, this YouTube to social, I want to create LinkedIn posts when I have a new YouTube video. I also want to create LinkedIn posts when we have a new 9X Live event that I need to talk about. I also want to create LinkedIn posts when I just have an idea, like I could send a record a voice note of an idea of a post. But all of those should use this skill to make sure that it's following the structure that I've set, following my tone of voice, following the LinkedIn best practices. That is a skill that it can be reused. When it comes to sub agents, this is Claude delegating tasks to keep context clean. So what you could have in this workflow, you could also have a LinkedIn post reviewer that whenever from this command, it actually goes and creates LinkedIn posts. You could have a sub agent that reviews it and feedbacks some information back. I'm not going to touch on sub agents in this session because it is a little bit advanced, but let's take a quick look at
Marianne on the
yeah.
comments, because there was a question there. So on skills and comments and on sharing these specifically. I think so, on the comments, comments are, we can share them on GitHub, but like the skills, I think is something you can share at on your Claude workspace level, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me just go, this is my work automation just to show you this one. So here in the Claude folder, we have some different folders. We have commands and skills and agents. And right now, this is something that just lives locally on my machine. But what I've also done is this is being synced to a platform called GitHub, which is all about ways of teams working on code together. And I think this is a good point to bring up this whole thing of like, where do you see this versus N8N, Zapier, Make? At the moment, this is still very much like single player. This is when I want to go and like, let's say, run this workflow. I'm in charge of writing the newsletter. So I can just come into on the laptop on a Wednesday when I prepare the newsletter and do /newsletter. This is optimizing my flow. Where I sit like what I would use for like N8N, Make, Zapier, it's really for running processes in the background. Now, could this eventually do that? Yes, absolutely. And what I'm also seeing is a lot of people are using Claude Code to create N8N workflows, create Make workflows, create Zapier workflows via their MCP. So you can also create workflows locally and then say, hey, now I want this to run in the background connected to systems, go and create the N8N workflow. Right now, the only way to share this would be a GitHub repository that everyone always pulls from and keeps up to date. In terms of what these are, they're actually quite basic, these commands and these skills. So this one example of like YouTube to LinkedIn that I said, all of these are Markdown files. Markdown is just a great language that large language models understand. Let me just open this up in the preview mode so it's a bit easier to see. This just lays out the exact workflow, what it should do whenever it runs the YouTube to LinkedIn command. It should go and grab the transcript of the video. And then what you'll notice down here is it says using the LinkedIn post writer skill. So what's interesting here is we have a command that actually triggers a skill. And the reason why we want to do this is, as I said, this LinkedIn post writer skill, if I open this one up here in the skills, LinkedIn post writer and skill.md, and I open this one up. This one, on the other hand, is all the best practices of how I like to write my LinkedIn posts. And Claude can basically use this either whenever I tell it specifically to use it, or what it has at the top of these markdown files has this description. And what you need to be careful of is how you write this description. Whenever you start a Claude session, all of these descriptions are loaded. So Claude knows all of the skills it has access to, and it decides when it should use a certain skill and read the whole thing. So that's sort of a quick explanation about the two. And maybe just one extra point. Let me go back to my Claude Code here, and I'm going to open up a past conversation. Let's say when I ran the newsletter. Someone asked about tokens before. This is a little bit in that vein. What I can do is I can click on here, context. And what's important to know is whenever you're running one of these Claude Code sessions, you have a certain context window. What Claude, like let's say, has access to. And that context window has a maximum capacity. I'll try and zoom in a little bit here. Is that working? No. I can just close these markdown files. Okay. So I've just run the context, and what it's going to tell me is what model I'm using, how much context I've consumed up so far. So right now I'm at 62,000 tokens out of 200,000. And we also see where is this token usage coming from. And you can see like all of these skills, they're very, very efficient because it only loads that certain description until it knows it needs to go deeper. Most of it here is coming from messages and MCP tools and different system tools. But that is a good way to understand the token usage within Claude Code. Alex, any does that make things a little bit clearer, or did I get a bit too technical there?
I mean, if you're asking me, I get it. I think there's part of the audience that is maybe struggling a little bit with, and I guess it's the interface.
Yeah.
And there was one remark around like this is definitely not a session for beginner. Well, it is, but you have to understand that this is the interface is overwhelming because this is an interface for developers primarily. I have to admit, I was also, I am still quite overwhelmed by the options on VS Code because sometimes when you open it, you have even more windows and your terminal is down there and your Claude Code chat is there, and then you have your documents and so it is overwhelming and is the way it is. For those who are looking for a simpler interface, there's co-work from Claude. Now, from what we've heard, we haven't tested it end to end yet. It is more limited. And so this is really the trade-off if you're a non-technical user. It looks difficult because there's a lot of things that you need to learn. You will need also to understand what's a repository versus a folder. Like Jan mentioned GitHub. A folder and a repository behave a little bit differently, and you want a repository if you want to track changes. There's a lot of things stacked on top of each other so that you start understanding what's going on. Yeah, this is really what Jan covers so far is really the basics, unfortunately.
Exactly. And I've tried to sort of go, I would always urge back. I've tried to give you a little bit more information here if you do want to get to the next step, that you'd know some of these things under the hood. We also try and cover the technical concepts. But what I would always just recommend is going back to this workflow, right?
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Tell the Claude what task you want it to do. Check the plan, review it, execute it, and then eventually all you need to know is this keyword to say, hey, turn this into a command, and you see the process of doing it. So with that in mind, since we've got half an hour left of the now 90-minute session, what I would like to turn to is the live build where you can actually get your hands on. And I've tried to create a very similar to the exercise we did with Airtable. However, we're not going to be connecting to an external system. So I wanted to show you how easy it is to connect to certain systems. So you saw connecting to Luma, to YouTube, to Airtable. You know that it's possible. But for this live build, we're going to be doing a more basic one that just involves files on your machines. I'm going to leave this one up for a few minutes, and I'm also going to paste this one in the chat here.
So this time, this is a for those who want to build along.
Exactly. This is build a long time. And I'll also be doing it together with you. So gurnarnext.me/cc build. And if anyone's watching on YouTube, you'll have the link to this in the description of the YouTube. All right. So I think most people have hopefully scanned the QR code or clicked on the link. Basically, it should lead you here, Claude Code Invoice Processor Agent. And what we're going to start by, you can read a little bit of the intro, but we're going to start by opening up this Google Drive folder, which I have here. And so here's my Google Drive folder. What you'll need to do is just go and download this folder, and that's the folder we're going to be starting from. So if you download this Google Drive folder as the first step, and maybe I'll wait a little bit now if everyone can just give me a thumbs up once you've at least got the folder downloaded. And Florian, I'll paste the link in the chat again. It's go9x.me/cc-build. And I'll go back to that QR code. All right. Is anyone able to already download that folder and ready to go? Laurie's got it saved. Very good. So Carolina, you should open the tutorial here. And in the tutorial, so the build an invoicer processor agent, this leads to this Notion page where you can follow along. We have all the prompts that you need to use. And here you have the sample invoice to get started. Thanks, Raul. Have a good evening. Okay, so let me move on now. And what we do is I'll go into my Visual Studio Code. And what I can do is just open. So either you can close this. I'm going to open a new window here in Visual Studio Code. And then we can open that folder that we just downloaded. So mine, it should be my downloads. Okay, so it is a zip file. Let's unzip that one first. Apologies if it also turned into a zip file for you. So what I'll do instead is I'll go into my Finder and unzip this one. Perfect. So unzip it, and now you should have the folder. I'll open up Visual Studio Code again. Open, downloads, and here we go. And Visual Studio Code is going to give me this warning saying, do you trust this project? Yes, I trust the authors because I was the author of it. And this file is here, but it's also, it is just living on our computer. So I can also view it in the Finder. Let me just open that one up here. So here we have it in the Finder. What I've got some sample invoices. All of these were actually created with Claude Code. So I've got some sample invoices in this invoices folder. We also have some more in the next batch folder that we're going to be using for testing afterwards. And now I'm just going to explain my task to Claude Code. So to open Claude Code up, I'm going to click here on the little Claude Code symbol. I can, as Alex said, the interface is a little bit scary here. I'm going to close this default chat from Visual Studio Code. I'm also going to close the welcome so that we simply just have the sidebar here and Claude Code set up. And I'll wait a little bit more till everyone gets to that level. If you could give me a thumbs up reaction or just message in the chat when you're at this stage, when you've got the Google Drive folder downloaded and you've opened it up in Visual Studio Code. Already 10 people. Awesome. Saw someone retract their thumbs up. That's okay as well. I know it's just Zoom telling me. Okay. Then we can move on to the next part of our instructions. Let me actually
Luca
just,
is asking how do I access the left part? So this Explorer.
yeah. So what I would do is when you have view, let me see window. I just want to make sure for me, it's always there by default.
Yeah.
Um,
Isn't that when you're on the top left with those files here?
yeah, exactly. Like if you're for instance, if you're caught in the extensions, then you can just the files is in the top left here. There is a case though where I think if it gets closed fully, but then yeah, so I've clicked out. Yeah, just clicking on the left hand side, they should be there.
Yeah.
All right, let me check now what the next instruction that I need to do. I'm going to bring my instructions over here. I don't want them in the same folder. There we go. Oh, now Arc's being weird. Let me. Why sometimes Arc does this. Okay, I'm just going to open a new Arc window. I'll bring this one over here. All right. So I've downloaded the sample invoices. I've opened the project in Visual Studio Code. I've activated Claude Code. Now, the first thing I need to make sure that I'm doing is setting it on plan mode. So I'm going to make sure here that plan mode is enabled. And now I can describe my task. Remember, I'm not saying build an automation. I'm just going to tell it what's the situation. So I'm going to say in my invoices folder, and right now we're inside this project, and that's maybe something that I didn't specify earlier. When you're using Claude Code, you open up a folder, it only has access to what's inside that folder. Yeah, so it can't just go and like look through your downloads. It has access to the folder you've opened it up in. So in my invoices folder are 3 new invoices I've received. I would like you to read each invoice and extract the following data points. So you've just listed in plain language what I want it to extract. Then create a CSV called log invoices where you store all of this information. And after you've extracted the information, I want you to move the files around to the processed folder. And I've given some additional structure that I want it to actually create subfolders. So I have all my invoices sorted by month. Typical, like let's say repetitive tasks that people really don't like doing. So I'm going to send this one off to Claude Code in plan mode. And now also let me know if everyone's gotten to this stage or if anyone's stuck. And you can see what's happening here is Claude started reading the different invoices already in that folder. So it's actually opened up and read the PDF. As we know, large language models can read PDFs. They can even now, like for instance, Gemini on one hand can process videos by looking at the transcript in different frames. So PDFs should not be a problem. I've successfully read all 3 invoices. Here's what I extracted. So it's actually already gone and done the work. Now, this is probably a case where we wouldn't have even needed to use plan mode here, but we do anyway. We follow the beginner workflow. I'm going to say yes and auto accept the plan. I probably was a little bit quick that I should have reviewed this a little bit more. Now, what some of you might happen, and this is very important to understand, in this is a large language model that we're working with. Some of you might be getting plans that say, hey, I'm going to go and create a Python library. I'm going to go and create a JavaScript library. Every time you run this, you will get a slightly different plan because it's not deterministic. It's a large language model at the end of the day, just like humans make different decisions. If that is the case, as we said there, I would recommend just sticking with Python, but also encourage it to use its internal Claude abilities because sometimes Claude will think, hey, I need to write a Python script for this, but actually Claude has everything it needs to process these invoices themselves. Now it's got its to-do plan and it's working on them. In my case, it's already written the log invoices, updating its to-dos. Okay, for me, it's already finished. How did everyone else go? Did anyone else get some drastically different results? Just scrolling down the chat. Done. Transmuting. Yes, you'll get some interesting words. Mine was complaining about due date. Yeah, these are in the past probably. Need to install some PDF reader. Done. Mine's still going to asking me loads of odd questions. So we can see here in the chat just how different the answers that we get. Now it's able to see invoices. Yeah, so a few of you are asking about the extension. The extension is nothing to do with Claude Code. That is a Visual Studio Code extension. So we have a quick information here, a little call out in the Notion page. So Visual Studio Code might ask you to install some extensions. Let me just zoom in here. So for instance, it recognized that you've opened PDF files in a code editor. A code editor isn't made to view PDF files. So there are different extensions in the marketplace that let you actually read these files. And whenever something like this comes up, Visual Studio Code will prompt you, do you want to install the extension? It's completely up to you whether you want to do it or not. So let me actually go and have a look in my Finder at what happened. So now, first of all, I have this log invoices folder, log invoices CSV, and you can see it's managed to extract the invoice number, the sender, the address, the date, the due date, the total amount, and the currency. So that's pretty sweet. It did exactly what I asked. And now the invoices folder is completely empty. We don't have any files inside our invoices folder. And if we look at the processed folder, we can see that Claude has now created a 2024-01. These were some old sample invoices, and 2024-02. So it looks like it's, let me just verify this. I'm going to open this one up. So the due date here was January 15th, 2024. So this looks good. Let's check the February of 2024 folder. And we can see the invoice date, February 1st, 2024. So we've verified it. This is looking good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, create that slash command. So we have this here in the prompt, create a command. Paste this in because I've verified Claude's done the task once. I've verified that it's able to do it. Can you create a command / process invoices that I can use to run this exact same process on demand? Here, I'm going to keep it as edit automatically. Send this one off. I'm going to allow this for all actions in this session. And allow it to make this directory. One thing that I don't know if I pointed out before, what's really useful here when you're reviewing these bash commands, there's the developer, like let's say the developer understood command at the top here, but then Claude is actually translating this into plain English. So here where it says like mkdir, no one's going to understand this, but it's telling us, hey, I want to create a commands directory. Yep, I'm happy for you to do this. There's a question about installing GitHub. No, absolutely not. This is all running locally if you're using VS Code and the Claude Code extension. Okay, so here it says done. I've created the / process invoices command. And now it's asking me, I can just type process invoices in any project. Again, here, if I look for process invoices, it hasn't come up because I need to reload Claude. Let me actually just double check this. What's interesting here, and this is something that will also happen at times, this one has decided to create this command in my, let's say, main Claude settings. So what you should check here is wherever it creates it, you should see the current folder you're in this path. And in this case, I don't. So I'm going to say, can you create the command specifically in this project? And yep, I'm going to allow you to do that. And now it's moved Claude, created the Claude folder and moved that command. And here we can also, what's cool about this, you can really review the instructions that Claude creates for itself. And it's also a way of learning how to write good prompts for these systems. So with that done, let me reboot Claude. I'm going to say new conversation. And I'll just check that my create invoices one. So this one still isn't there. Let me then just exit out of it. Sometimes what you also need to do is like fully close it as well. So I'm going to close this one, and then open up Claude Code again. Now I can close it here, back to my files, and let's see. Yeah, so here we have process invoices. So that's there. Now, if I run this, nothing will happen because there's no invoices in my folder. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to grab from the next batch, and I'm just going to move all of these into that invoices folder. So now we can process the rest, and you can see just how quickly now it can do something in bulk. Process invoices. Found 6 files. Found 6 PDFs. Let me read each one. So it's reading each one individually. You can see it's opening them up. And I wonder even if we'll be able to see the magic happening here as those files move around. And how is it looking in the chat, Alex?
Some questions that I'm processing. I have a few people stuck with having issues with connecting the API key.
Okay.
So prompted to upgrade to Max or Pro, but as we told you, the Max or Pro is it's a bit more expensive, but you can use your API key or generate one. People are getting an API key error.
Okay. So let me just do that process then from scratch here in Visual Studio Code. Just quickly for like wrapping up this live build, or maybe also apart from the people that are having problems, was anyone able to get this working and having Claude Code create the command and move the invoices around? If you can drop some thumbs up, or yeah, Marcus, awesome. Almost there. Very cool. Worked. Yeah, too easy. Nice. All right, good. At least it wasn't hopefully it wasn't a tutorial that was completely out of reach. What's very, very difficult here is everyone is dealing with different systems. For instance, I'm not a Microsoft user, so it's quite hard to debug some Microsoft issues. But let me just walk through the process on the API key specifically. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to log out I'm going to run the login again. Or is there a way of, I think I can do that here. Switch account. Okay, so if you're opening up this in Visual Studio Code for the first time, you should land here. If you have a monthly Claude plan, you need to click Claude AI subscription. Otherwise, click Anthropic Console. Now, one thing to make sure of that if you want to use this one, let me just go and open that. I've actually got that open here. So here I am on platform.claude.com, and I have API keys. Yeah, and so I've got different API keys added here. If you are a part of a company and you're in a company account, what's very important is here in the member section, you'll only be able to create API keys if you're at least a developer. Yeah, so it could be that one of your company's admin added you just as a user, but now obviously they've added a new one. So I guess you'll need to be at least Claude Code in order to use it. So that would be step one. If you're using a company account, make sure your admin doesn't have you as user, but has you as at least Claude Code. And then also what you'll need to make sure is that you have some credits added. So you can just click on billing. It'll show you how much credits you have, and you will need to have some credits there. Once those things are done, it should theoretically, you don't even need to create the API key here yourself. All you need to do is click on Anthropic Console, be logged in. So it's going to take me to the Anthropic Console, and now pick your organization. So I'm going to select my 9X organization. That was the dashboard that I was just showing you. And now it's asking you, Claude Code would like to connect to your Anthropic organization, authorize. If you try and click authorize and it doesn't work, we tested this yesterday, it is because of your user permissions on the console or because you don't have enough credits in your account. So I'm going to click authorize, and let's see. This one just quickly dropped, but you can see, so I think it was just quickly jumped to the wrong page. If I go back, we can see Claude Code is up and running and working. Can't find the command, can't find the command. Okay, so if you've created the command and it's not, it can't be found, first of all, make sure you have here, check if you can see it here on the left-hand side. So if and .claude commands process invoices. If you do not see it, just tell Claude, hey, I don't see this in this project. So you can just say, hey, I can't see the command in my project. Can you please move it? Right? And then just literally whenever you have these issues, tell Claude what's going on. Now, if you see the command here in the left-hand side, but you do not see it when you start typing, what you need to do is create a new Claude chat. So you go to here on the bottom right, you can either click on the slash and search for new conversation because you need to reload Claude so it knows what commands it has access to. Minya's asking whether you can see the credit usage. Let's have a look here at usage. So it doesn't look like it, that you can see the real-time usage because I'm on the monthly plan. That's the one benefit of the monthly plan. You don't have to worry about how many credits you're consuming. On the monthly plan, here we have /cost. You are currently using a subscription to power your Claude Code usage. So let me actually, must have somehow logged in. But if you're on the API, then if you do /cost, it should tell you how much you're using. Awesome. Alex, any more questions in the chat? I know we've got 10 minutes left.
What model of Claude are you using, and maybe how to change the model?
Yeah. So by default, I don't know if it's just on the plan that I'm on. So you can, again here, / and type in model. It'll come up switch model. And here you can see the default one that they recommend is Opus 4.5. Obviously, though, if you're on the API, this is by far the most expensive, but it's really the one that like Claude Code is becoming so popular because of this model. Like they've really optimized Opus 4.5 to work in Claude Code. And even the model that's here is apparently different to the Opus 4.5 that you just use via the API or via the web. It's really fine-tuned for Claude Code. So that's my default because I'm on the monthly plan. I don't need to worry about consuming, let's say, API credits. That's what I would recommend. But you have the models here.
Thailand also mentions that you can still check the consumption on the desktop app if you are a monthly subscriber.
Yeah, okay.
That is possible to check it.
Yeah, because I think so the one thing that I haven't mentioned here, so obviously it was very clear that when it comes to the API, they consume credits, right? So you put $10, you have a few Claude Code sessions, it'll say, hey, you've used $5 worth of your $10 credits. When it comes to the monthly plans, how it works is you get different limits and you have both a session limit, which is I think like an 8-hour period, and you also have a weekly limit. So if you start using this like crazy, and let's say you're on the very intro, the pro plan for just $20 a month, you're going to hit a limit and Claude's going to say, hey, we have to stop now and you can come back at 4 p.m. tomorrow and continue this conversation. Or you can add an API key and then get paid based on billing. But that's the trade-off on the monthly accounts. And Tillen's saying it's basically 220 messages is $100 and 1,000 messages on the $200 plan. Cool. Anything? So Florian, you've got a question there. How do I run Python 3 invoice processor.py next time? This is exactly what you want it to create a command for. Yeah. So in your case, it created a Python script. And what you'll ask it to do is, hey, can you create a command that automatically runs that Python script? Does the same principle we used in the automation apply if we want to run locally any other files, and also if those files look different, as long as we prompt what we need to sort it out? Yeah, and maybe this is like one other good, like let's say, very big difference towards building automations in N8N or Zapier, or because in the end, this whole workflow is run by a large language model. So let's say, imagine we now run some more invoices that look totally different and are missing a bunch of data, Claude Code might pick up. We try and run it. It will say, hey, all of these invoices are missing an invoice number. It'll probably tell you that. And then you can adjust your workflow. You can chat it to it just like you'd chat with a colleague. Or otherwise, if it doesn't, it processes them anyway. You need to look at the results and say, hey, Claude, I see a bunch of invoices now in our CSV that are missing an invoice number. If any invoice doesn't have an invoice number, do not log it and rather create a new CSV file called error, for instance. So that's like the way I would adapt to it is literally just talk to it through the workflow. It's a lot more adaptable than, let's say, when you're building a very fixed deterministic automation. All right, Alex, anything else in the chat?
Um, it's very broad. It's very broad. First of all, Jan, thank you for the session and the format. I have to say, like this first time we do this with Cloud Code and with this type of solution, and the challenge here is we don't know what's on your screen. Yeah, for everyone that's running the instructions, for some of you it created a skill, for others it ran a command. For some it works, for some it did not. Um, so it's very difficult to know unless we can look exactly at the screen and know what you have there, how to solve that. Now the good news, so the bad news is we can't look at your screen. The good news is Claude is probably able to help you troubleshoot whichever situation you are in. And I think here I'd like to share one like my personal experience with that, even like building automations for quite a while, I thought it's really testing your ability to adapt and to, let's say, diagnose the problem or try again an alternative solution together with Cloud Code. Um, and you don't know what's on the other side sometimes. I don't know what to say about this session because eventually I think there's quite a few people that managed to go all through the tutorial that you showed to get the sessions. For others, it was a bit harder, and I guess it's really the challenge with this interface is that it's total freedom, but it's also a certain level of randomness that makes it very different to work with.
Yeah, and maybe that's what a really good point there, Alex. A couple of things on what you mentioned there. What I hope is like that everyone who's been putting into the comments in Zoom, like if something's not working, I hope you've been sending the same message to Claude Code. That's like step number one. Also, for instance, like what's really useful sometimes, now here it's quite basic, is you can also take like screenshots of things and literally just like copy and paste them in to Claude Code and it can read those screenshots. Also, sometimes if it starts, because here right now it says edit automatically. Edit automatically means like I'm go. I've got like my first idea and I'm going for it. If, for instance, after a while, it's like you ask it 10 times saying, hey, I know that commands are a thing, but you're creating skills. What you can simply do is change it to plan mode and say, can you research the difference between Claude Code skills and commands? And what it'll do now, it'll use its tools that it has in its planning mode, and it will go and do a web search. It will go and actually fetch the Claude documentation. So here it's realized it's got a task, it's reading some things, and now it's doing a web fetch. It's going and grabbing the documentation from Claude, and then it's going to, after you've gone back to plan mode, you can go back to active mode and actually start building it. So if you're hitting these roadblocks, don't be afraid to switch back to plan mode, and also like use Claude Code as your debugging partner. Share it screenshots, share it documentation that you found online and say, hey, I know this thing works, and you should get far better results. Awesome. And I see Georgia got everything working. Really cool. Perfect. Then I guess we've got a few minutes to spare if there's no more questions. Yeah, awesome, Dietrich. Happy to hear that helped. Finally got this going. Awesome.
If
Amazing.
anything, I think we'll have more sessions on Cloud Code. But give us also the time to figure it out as
Yeah.
well on our side.
Yeah. Maybe what would be good to know, just lastly, for those of you still in the chat, for the next session on Claude Code, are you more interested in apps and website building, so pure vibe coding, or more of these automation tasks? I would love, that would be very useful into automation. Okay, both apps and website. I thought it was going to be all automation, but now it's looking like a 50-50. So Alex, it looks like we've got a few more sessions ahead.
Yep.
One where we vibe code the 9x learning platform, maybe.
Yeah.
Perfect. Then everyone, thank you so much for sticking with
Thank
us.
you.
All of you will have the recording in your inbox tomorrow. I cannot confirm nor deny whether Claude Code will be sending you that email or if I'll be doing it. And then, yeah, hopefully we see some of you next week or in the next, whenever you join another 9x Live. Take care.
Especially those who stayed till the end. You guys are
Yeah.
awesome.